Hello friends. What happens when the sky throws together a spark and a mountain? Chaos? Passion? Maybe. Destiny. Aries and Taurus, two zodiac signs that couldn't seem more different on the surface, often find themselves drawn to each other in ways they can't explain. But is this just attraction, or something deeper? Let's explore the romantic dynamics of Aries and Taurus in love, both when Aries is the man and Taurus the woman, and vice versa. We'll break it into three key elements: chemistry, initial attraction, emotional dynamics, and long-term compatibility. Chemistry, initial attraction, the spark versus the slow burn. Imagine Aries, bold, brash, electric, a human embodiment of spring's very first thunderclap. Aries doesn't walk into a room, they burst into it. Their aura is action, movement, passion. Now picture Taurus, grounded, composed, quietly confident. The slow bloom of a rose rather than the pop of fireworks. They aren't the type to chase, they let the right things come to them. Taurus man plus Aries woman. When an Aries man walks into a room, he doesn't just enter, he arrives. There's something unmistakable about him, the way he carries himself, the unapologetic pace of his words, the fire in his eyes. He radiates intent, a kind of kinetic energy that makes people look twice. And when he looks across that room and sees a Taurus woman, quiet, grounded, seemingly untouched by the chaos around her, something inside him snaps to attention. She doesn't chase attention, and that makes her even more magnetic to him. She's like a painting in a museum, beautiful, unmoving, and surrounded by a velvet rope of dignity. The Aries man is used to women responding quickly to his energy. He's charming, bold, sometimes even recklessly so. Most people either lean in or back off immediately. But the Taurus woman, she doesn't do either. She simply observes. Her eyes meet his and hold, not with flirtation, but with assessment. That cool appraisal, subtle and unshaken, is irresistible to the Aries man. To him, this isn't a red light, it's a green light disguised as a challenge. She, in turn, doesn't immediately know what to make of him. He's loud, not just vocally, but energetically. His movements are decisive, his jokes unfiltered, his confidence unchecked. And while this can border on arrogance, there's also something refreshingly honest about him. He's not pretending, he's not posturing, he is exactly who he is, no layers, no caution, just raw presence. For someone like her, who lives life slowly, carefully, with deep intentionality, his emotional transparency is both fascinating and unsettling. He approaches, not with hesitation, but with heat. The Aries man is a pursuer by nature. He wants, so he acts. His flirting is direct, even aggressive by most standards, but never insincere. He doesn't believe in waiting to be noticed, he believes in making himself unforgettable. But here's where the dance begins. The Taurus woman doesn't play. She doesn't flirt for sport, and she doesn't react for reaction's sake. Her responses are measured, polite, even restrained. Not because she isn't interested, but because she doesn't give herself away that easily. To him, this is thrilling. Finally, someone he can't read. Someone who doesn't melt at the first wave of charm. Her calm is electric. Her resistance is an aphrodisiac. It's not rejection, it's mystery. And Aries is addicted to mystery he thinks he can solve. To her, he's exhausting, but also quietly intriguing. There's a kind of courage in his emotional immediacy. He says what he feels without apology. He makes space for big emotions, big plans, big risks. She's slower, more internal, more practical. But she can't help wondering what it would feel like to live in his tempo, to chase a feeling, rather than wait for it to settle. And so, attraction blooms not from common ground, but from contrast. He's heat, she's earth. He burns, she absorbs. He leaps, she stands firm. It's not always comfortable, but it's never boring. He challenges her emotional stillness, she grounds his emotional chaos. Each sees in the other something unfamiliar, and that unfamiliarity breeds fascination. In the early stages of their dynamic, everything is about rhythm. He moves quickly, he wants answers, he declares his interest and expects some kind of echo. But with the Taurus woman, there is no echo. There's only quiet, thoughtful presence. He texts immediately, She takes hours, not out of strategy, but because she's genuinely thinking. He talks about the future on the second date. She's still deciding if he's even stable enough to meet her cat. But here's what makes this pair so fascinating. Neither gives up easily. Aries doesn't like losing. Taurus doesn't like being rushed. He pushes, she resists. He insists, she observes. And in this quiet war of emotional tempos, something delicate begins to form: mutual curiosity. The Aries man starts to ask himself questions he's never asked before. Why does her silence bother me? Why do I care so much what she thinks? The Taurus woman starts noticing her own reactions. Why does his energy feel reckless, but also kind of exciting? Why do I want to keep hearing what he'll say next? This early phase is a test, not of feelings but of timing. If he's patient enough to let her open at her pace, and if she's brave enough to lean into his enthusiasm without fear, they begin to find a rhythm that is entirely their own. But make no mistake, the danger here is assumption. The Aries man may interpret her composure as coldness. He may grow impatient and leave before the bond has time to deepen. The Taurus woman may see his passion as volatility, or mistake his emotional transparency for instability. If either lets their fear of the other's nature win, the flame dies before it ever touches the ground. But if they push past that, if he stays long enough to earn her trust, and she dares to lower her guard just enough to let him in, something truly rare begins to happen. The fire doesn't burn out, and the soil doesn't smother it. Instead, the flame finds a place to live. Not wild, not out of control, but steady, sustainable, real. That's the magic of their chemistry. It's not easy, it's earned. He teaches her to risk. She teaches him to wait. Together, they discover a kind of attraction that isn't just about adrenaline or safety, but the exquisite tension of becoming something new in each other's presence. Taurus man plus Aries woman. Chemistry: initial attraction, the spark versus the slow burn. When a Taurus man first lays eyes on an Aries woman, something in him shifts, quietly, imperceptibly, but undeniably. She's unlike anyone he's used to. She doesn't wait for the world to notice her, she demands it. There's fire in her steps, a fierce elegance in the way she occupies space. Her laugh is unfiltered, her gaze direct. She speaks as though time is running out, as though she has no intention of asking permission to exist. And for the Taurus man, who lives his life with patience, strategy, and a fondness for routine, this kind of woman is magnetic, terrifying, and exhilarating all at once. He notices her before he understands why. She enters a room with such unapologetic presence that it disrupts his usual sense of control. She's not loud for attention, she's loud because she is. She doesn't flirt in the traditional sense. She challenges, teases, engages, and then walks away, not to entice, but because she's already moved on to the next moment. To a man who prefers slow sips to sudden shots, she's intoxicating, like a fire he knows he shouldn't touch, but can't look away from. Meanwhile, the Aries woman is scanning the room in her usual way, quick, confident, already bored with most of it. And then she sees him. He's not posturing, he's not trying to charm. He's just there, grounded, calm, quietly confident in a way that doesn't need validation. While others try to impress, he seems immune to the need to be noticed. That alone makes her stop. Who is this man who isn't falling all over himself? Who isn't rushing to match her tempo? She watches him for signs. Is he shy or just reserved? Is he arrogant or simply self-contained? The truth is, he's not trying to play any game. That's just the Taurus way. He observes before he acts, measures before he leaps. His attention isn't given freely, it's earned. And that, to the Aries woman, is a dare. She doesn't want easy, she wants earned interest. She doesn't need compliments, she wants to crack the code. The Taurus man, for his part, is drawn in slowly but surely. He admires her independence, even as it threatens his sense of predictability. He's used to people fitting into his life's carefully constructed order. But this woman, this blazing, fearless creature, doesn't fit. She knocks down the walls and dances on the floorboards. And instead of resisting it, part of him wonders what it might feel like to let her in. She throws out bold opinions. He listens, She jokes, challenges, pokes. He doesn't flinch. That steadiness, that refusal to be shaken, it drives her wild. Not because he's indifferent, but because he's centered. And slowly, she starts seeing more than his silence. She sees his depth, his quiet way of paying attention, the way he makes mental notes without saying a word. His interest doesn't shout, it settles in the space between words, in the pauses between moments. This difference in pace becomes the cornerstone of their early chemistry. She wants to race, he wants to walk. She expresses interest with sparks and sizzle. He expresses interest by showing up, quietly, again and again. She may push him to see what he's made of. He may hesitate to meet her fire with fire, not because he lacks passion, but because his version of desire isn't about the chase. It's about certainty. In her world, attraction is about momentum, rapid-fire connection, bold declarations, instant emotional downloads. In his world, attraction is about presence, the slow building of trust, the comfort of stillness, the loyalty that comes from choosing someone over time. And yet, their differences create a magnetic tension neither can ignore. She's fascinated by his resistance, not the kind that pushes back, but the kind that simply doesn't move unless it wants to. And he's fascinated by her force, her need to push forward, to challenge every rule, to live fully without a filter. She brings energy into his life like spring breaking into a frozen landscape. He brings depth into hers like soil beneath a burning sun. Still, the early stages require balance. The Aries woman might grow frustrated with his measured pace, questioning if he's interested at all. Why doesn't he just do something? She wonders. She's not used to having to wait. He might find her overwhelming at times, unsure whether she's serious or just restless. Is she passionate, or just passing through? He questions. But when they both pause, when she slows down enough to see the loyalty behind his stillness, and he steps forward enough to meet her halfway, they discover a rare kind of spark, not one that explodes and fades, but one that warms and endures. Their chemistry isn't about matching energies, it's about completing them. She teaches him that not every risk leads to ruin. He teaches her that not every delay is disinterest. Together, they stretch each other. She opens the window, he builds the foundation. She strikes the match, he protects the flame. It's not effortless, it's alive. And that's what makes it unforgettable. Emotional dynamics, the tug of war between passion and patience. This is where things get interesting. Aries wants to move fast. They fall quickly, love fiercely, and get frustrated easily. Their emotions are like summer storms, sudden, loud, and gone before you know it. Taurus is a slow emotional cooker. They need time, stability. They won't say, "I love you," on the third date, but when they finally open up, their love is like an anchor. Steady, enduring, deep. Aries man plus Taurus woman. At the emotional level, the Aries man and Taurus woman speak almost entirely different languages, not because they lack feelings, but because they express them in such opposing ways that misinterpretation becomes inevitable. The Aries man is an emotional sprinter. He reacts, he declares, he feels, loudly and in real time. He doesn't believe in second-guessing his heart. If he loves you, he says it today. If he's upset, you'll know before you've finished your coffee. His emotional world is kinetic, electric, and utterly unfiltered. The Taurus woman, by contrast, is emotional granite, not because she lacks depth, but because her emotions are layered, subterranean, and meticulously controlled. She guards her inner world like sacred ground. Her affection, once earned, is steady and immense, but it is earned, not given at the door. She's a long-game heart. And to someone like Aries, who thrives on immediate intimacy and visible passion, this restraint can feel like ice. The Aries man often finds himself confused by the Taurus woman's emotional timing. He might pour out his feelings, expecting her to mirror them, only to be met with a calm nod, a measured smile, or, worst of all, silence. And that silence feels like rejection to him. He takes it personally, because in his world, feelings are loud or they aren't real. If she cared, he thinks, wouldn't she say something? But to her, silence is not absence, it's reflection. She's feeling, just not externally. This misunderstanding is where many of their emotional challenges begin. He interprets her caution as emotional distance. She sees his passion as volatility. He wants spontaneous declarations of love. She needs steady proof over time. He says, "Let's fall in love tonight." She thinks, "Let's see who you are in 6 months." It's not lack of desire, it's difference in tempo. For the Taurus woman, the Aries man's intensity can be overwhelming, even frightening at times. Not because he's cruel, but because his emotions are so alive, so undisciplined. He moves from high to low and back again with disorienting speed. One moment, he's passionately present. The next, he's pulling away in frustration, unable to handle her slow unfolding. She begins to question his emotional stability. Is he serious, or is this just another one of his impulsive flares? Can she build a future with someone who lives in the now? Yet, as chaotic as he can seem, there's something compelling in his honesty. He doesn't hide behind games. What he feels, he shows. And that raw emotional authenticity, while alien to her, starts to chip away at her walls. If he remains consistent, if he proves that his fire doesn't burn out the second he doesn't get what he wants, she begins to soften. Not quickly, not all at once, but in small, invisible ways. A touch that lingers, a text sent without overthinking, a smile that doesn't need a reason. For the Aries man, this slow reveal is both frustrating and captivating. He's not used to emotional subtlety. He wants dramatic gestures and passionate confessions. But as he begins to recognize the meaning behind her small acts, the quiet way she begins to let him in, he starts to understand that love doesn't always arrive like a thunderclap. Sometimes, it arrives like dawn. This process teaches him patience, and it teaches her trust. He learns that not every silence is a wall. Some silences are bridges being built slowly. She learns that not every burst of passion is unstable. Some fires stay lit if they're tended carefully. In the best cases, they become emotional translators for each other. He shows her how to be bold with her feelings, and she shows him how to sit with his own without needing immediate resolution. Still, their emotional journey is fragile. If either refuses to shift, if Aries demands more than she's ready to give, or if Taurus refuses to meet him even halfway, friction becomes resentment. He starts to feel unappreciated. She starts to feel emotionally bulldozed. He might lash out, accusing her of being cold. She might shut down, seeing him as immature. And once emotional mistrust settles in, it becomes difficult to untangle without real effort. What makes their emotional connection so rich, however, is the possibility for balance. Aries brings the courage to feel fully. Taurus brings the wisdom to feel safely. Together, they create a kind of emotional ecosystem where passion is grounded and stability is alive. They challenge each other to expand their emotional comfort zones, not through force, but through presence. When he slows down just enough to notice her quiet loyalty, and she speeds up just enough to share what's in her heart, something beautiful emerges, trust built on difference. Not because they became the same, but because they chose to understand each other. This emotional dance isn't easy, but when they find their rhythm, when he learns to listen, and she dares to leap, they become each other's emotional equalizers. His fire, once unpredictable, becomes focused. Her earth, once rigid, becomes responsive. And in that balance, they discover a kind of love that doesn't just burn, it endures. Taurus man plus Aries woman. The emotional landscape between a Taurus man and an Aries woman is both a puzzle and a paradox, a terrain marked by conflicting instincts, different speeds, and wildly different ways of processing connection. On the surface, they may seem emotionally incompatible, but underneath, there's something far more complex, a potential for deep emotional evolution, if they can learn to speak each other's language. The Taurus man is deep feeling, but not deep speaking. His emotional world runs wide and quiet like a river, constant, calm, slow to flood. He isn't the kind to blurt out what he feels. Instead, he internalizes, reflects, and acts only when he's certain. For him, feelings are sacred, not something to be spilled in passing. His motto is, mean it, or don't say it at all. Every emotion must be true, every word earned. And that makes him appear emotionally distant. even when he's anything but. Now picture the Aries woman. She lives in emotional motion. What she feels, she says. What she wants, she asks for. What she fears, she confronts. To her, emotional energy is not something to be held, it's something to release. She values emotional honesty above all else, even if it's messy, even if it's loud, even if it stings. She doesn't fear vulnerability, she fears emotional stagnation. She needs to know, feel, hear. Silence? It drives her mad. This sets the stage for their emotional conflict. She craves emotional immediacy. He needs emotional certainty. She wants, "I love you," in the moment it strikes her. He wants to be sure, "I love you," is true today, tomorrow, and next year before he says it aloud. When she opens up quickly, and he doesn't respond with equal intensity, she feels shut out. Why won't he meet me where I am? She wonders. Why does he hold back when I'm giving everything? What she doesn't see, at least not right away, is that he is showing emotion, just not in her language. The Taurus man expresses emotionally through presence, not proclamations. He'll remember how you like your coffee, quietly notice when you're off, fix your car without making a scene about it. His affection is practical, subtle, and deeply loyal. But to the Aries woman, who thrives on passion, declarations, and heart-on-sleeve energy, this can feel like he's emotionally unavailable. She interprets his slowness as hesitation, his stillness as emotional absence. But what she's really seeing is caution, not apathy. He, on the other hand, may find her emotional transparency both refreshing and overwhelming. Her intensity is beautiful, but it also unnerves him. She moves so fast, from interest to connection to confrontation, that he starts to question whether it's real. Is this depth or just adrenaline? He wonders. He's been wired to distrust fast emotions. To him, love isn't something that explodes. It's something that builds, like trust, like a house, like a life. And while he's quietly fascinated by her fire, part of him is afraid to stand too close in case he gets burned. But something remarkable happens if she slows down just enough to notice his quiet devotion, and if he steps forward just enough to let her feel his emotional presence. She starts to understand that still waters really do run deep. That silence doesn't mean indifference, it means intention. That when he finally does speak, his words carry weight, because he doesn't waste them. And he, in turn, begins to admire her courage, her willingness to feel in the open, her fearlessness in expressing affection, the way she leaps into love like it's a fire she knows how to walk through. This is where they begin to emotionally complement one another in powerful ways. She breathes life into his stillness. He brings depth to her storms. She shows him that emotions don't have to be delayed to be sincere. He shows her that patience doesn't mean repression, it means reverence. She gives him a space to risk. He gives her a space to rest. But this balance doesn't happen on its own. If either side holds too tightly to their comfort zone, they will frustrate each other endlessly. She may grow impatient, feeling like she's always dragging emotions out of him with a crowbar. He may shut down, feeling overwhelmed by her emotional urgency. She might accuse him of being emotionally unavailable. He might label her as reckless, dramatic, too quick to feel and too quick to flee. It takes maturity for her to understand that not all love looks like hers. That not every man who hesitates is hiding, some are simply protecting something sacred. And it takes courage for him to realize that not every outburst is instability, sometimes it's simply passion, unfiltered and raw. When they both stretch toward each other, when he risks speaking before he's 100% ready, and she learns to sit in quiet without needing immediate feedback, they create something rare, emotional fluency across difference. What makes their emotional dynamic so compelling is the transformative potential on both sides. She evolves by learning that real love sometimes requires stillness. He evolves by learning that love also means showing up out loud. They don't change who they are, but they do expand. Together, they create a love story that's less about finding someone who mirrors your heart, and more about someone who challenges it to grow. In time, she learns that his silence holds volumes. And he learns that her noise is a form of love. And when they meet in that middle ground, not perfectly, but intentionally, they find a kind of emotional intimacy neither one expected. Real, raw, and deeply rooted. Long-term compatibility. Can the flame and the soil coexist? In the long run, Aries and Taurus can either become each other's greatest teacher, or most exhausting test. Let's talk core values. Aries craves excitement. They want adventure, challenge, something new to conquer. In relationships, they need stimulation, emotional, intellectual, physical. If life gets too routine, Aries can grow restless and start looking elsewhere. Taurus craves security. They want peace, routine, and emotional reliability. They're not looking to reinvent the wheel every week. They want to make the wheel stronger and last a lifetime. This can lead to a tug of war. Aries man plus Taurus woman. When the honeymoon phase fades and real life enters the room, with its bills, habits, responsibilities, and rhythms, the emotional differences between an Aries man and a Taurus woman shift from charming quirks to serious pressure points. What once felt like an exciting contrast can, without care, become an exhausting tug of war between freedom and security, risk and reliability, fire and earth. The Aries man, by nature, thrives on movement. He doesn't just crave change, he needs it. New ideas, spontaneous trips, sudden career pivots, unplanned purchases. They don't stress him, they fuel him. His joy lives in momentum. He wants to feel like he's going somewhere, even if the destination changes 5 times along the way. Routine, to him, can feel like a cage, even if it's a comfortable one. The thought of planning 5 years ahead, of locking into a fixed schedule, of discussing retirement accounts over dinner, it can make his skin crawl. It's not that he's irresponsible, it's that he believes life is short, and everything good lives just beyond what's planned. The Taurus woman, on the other hand, builds her world on certainty. Predictability isn't boring to her, it's beautiful. She sees planning as love, structure as care. She wants to know where the money is going not because she's materialistic, but because she's grounded in reality. Love, for her, lives in action. Setting up a budget, building a home, deciding which school district is best for the kids they don't have yet. To her, security is the foundation upon which intimacy thrives. And when her Aries partner shrugs off these conversations, or worse, treats them as limitations, she feels not just unheard, but unsafe. This is where the long-term tension begins to brew. The Aries man starts to feel boxed in, suffocated by the weight of routine and responsibility. The Taurus woman begins to feel like she's building a future alone, dragging a dreamer behind her. She may start to see him as reckless, impulsive, or immature. He may start to see her as rigid, joyless, or even controlling. These perceptions, often unspoken, begin to corrode the partnership from the inside out. Without conscious communication, this couple runs the risk of drifting into emotional distance. Resentment builds not from one catastrophic moment, but from the daily friction of mismatched expectations. She wants him to show consistency, he wants her to trust spontaneity. She feels burdened with the practical load, he feels emotionally penalized for wanting excitement. They love each other, but begin to wonder if love is enough. And yet, when they decide to truly understand each other, rather than change each other, their differences become their superpower. The Taurus woman can be the grounding force the Aries man never knew he needed. She gives form to his fire. She reminds him to slow down, to finish what he starts, to build a legacy instead of chasing temporary thrills. She doesn't demand perfection, only presence, the kind that stays even when the excitement fades. And the Aries man, in return, brings color to her world. He teaches her that stability doesn't mean stagnation, that life can be structured and spontaneous, that love is not just in the plans you make, but in the wild things you dare to do together. He'll pull her out of her routine and show her the thrill of not knowing what comes next. With him, she remembers that predictability is safe, but it's not always alive. Together, they have the potential to build something truly rare. A life that is both exciting and secure, passionate and peaceful, wild and rooted. Their relationship, when nurtured, becomes a dance between motion and stillness, between dreaming and doing. She brings patience to his chaos. He brings magic to her method. Of course, this balance doesn't happen by default. It requires work, the unglamorous kind. They'll need regular conversations about expectations. They'll need shared calendars and spontaneous weekends. He'll have to learn to stay in place sometimes, to follow through on promises, to show love not just in grand gestures but in reliable, everyday moments. She'll have to learn to let go sometimes, to laugh when plans fall apart, to say yes to the unknown even when it terrifies her. But when they commit to the process, when they learn to translate each other's values, their love story becomes one of rare alchemy. He expands her comfort zone. She anchors his dreams. He inspires her to leap. She teaches him to land. And slowly, they stop pulling in opposite directions and start building together. What they create is not a compromise, but a third space, something neither could have built alone. It's a life where passion doesn't burn out, and security doesn't harden into routine. It's a love that evolves, adapts, and deepens over time, not because they are perfectly matched, but because they chose, again and again, to grow together. Taurus man plus Aries woman. In the long term, the Taurus man and Aries woman must confront the simple truth that love, especially between two people as elementally different as earth and fire, is not something you stumble into and ride effortlessly into forever. It's something you cultivate, something you choose, and with this pair, that choice has to happen not just at the beginning, but again and again, especially when the very traits that once drew them together start to wear thin. The Taurus man is a creature of comfort. He treasures routine not because he lacks imagination, but because structure gives him peace. There's something deeply satisfying to him about knowing where things are, what's expected, and what's next. His version of romance might be a slow dinner at their favorite spot, a Sunday morning walk with coffee, or planning a financial future with a level of detail that would make a spreadsheet blush. He doesn't need constant adventure to feel alive, he needs consistency to feel safe. And safety, to him, is sacred. The Aries woman, however, was born chasing stars. She doesn't want to know what's next, she wants to find out mid-leap. She's the kind of woman who gets an idea at 10 p.m. and wants to road trip by 10:30. She wants stimulation, not schedules. Conversations that stretch her mind. Experiences that make her heart race. She finds joy in disruption, surprise, novelty. Her love language is movement. And when life starts feeling too predictable, too still, she begins to itch under her own skin. So what happens when a man who craves quiet is paired with a woman who lives in a storm? He may begin to feel emotionally drained, not because he doesn't love her, but because her intensity seems relentless. Her constant desire to stir the pot, challenge assumptions, question the obvious, and reimagine the ordinary can make him feel like nothing is ever enough. That the moment he finds equilibrium, she's already pushing to reset the scale. He longs for stillness, she mistakes stillness for stagnation. And she, in turn, may start to feel boxed in, like her spirit is being domesticated. His love of comfort can feel like fear of change. His tendency to resist emotional confrontation may look like avoidance. His preference for doing things the way we've always done them may make her feel unseen, even trapped. She wants spontaneity, he wants security. She wants passion to be loud and messy. He wants love to be quiet and proven. It's easy to see how, without intentional compromise, this dynamic can become a stalemate. If he digs too deeply into his comfort zone, she'll rebel. And when she rebels, not to punish but simply to reclaim herself, he'll feel abandoned, emotionally unsafe, and begin to retreat into silence, or worse, passive resistance. Communication breaks down, not in explosion, but in distance. The space between them grows, not from anger, but from accumulated misunderstanding. And yet, when they meet in the middle, something extraordinary happens. The Aries woman begins to see that predictability doesn't have to mean imprisonment. That in the steady arms of her Taurus partner, she has a kind of emotional safety she's never known, one that doesn't ask her to tone down her fire, but simply to rest in his earth when she's tired. She realizes that love can be a slow burn and still be real. That passion can be quiet and still run deep. She doesn't have to constantly prove or provoke to feel connected. She can be, and be held. The Taurus man, in turn, begins to realize that disruption isn't always a threat. Sometimes it's a spark. That her intensity isn't chaos, it's creation. That when she challenges him, she's not rejecting him, she's inviting him to evolve. He learns that growth doesn't mean losing control, and that stepping outside his comfort zone can be its own kind of intimacy. Her fire doesn't burn him, it lights up parts of his soul he forgot were there. Over time, if nurtured properly, they become each other's missing element. She becomes the adrenaline that wakes him up to life's wild possibilities. He becomes the anchor that lets her take those risks without drowning. She teaches him to act before he's ready. He teaches her to wait before she jumps. Together, they create a dynamic where life is never boring, but also never unmoored. But the key is daily choice. This relationship doesn't work on autopilot. It can't. The gravitational pull of their natures will always pull them toward their default settings, him toward retreat, her toward rebellion. If they don't continually return to the table, with compassion, honesty, and the willingness to be vulnerable, their love will stretch thin under the weight of unchecked assumptions. What makes them work long-term isn't ease, it's effort. It's his decision to walk into her fire because he knows there's warmth, not just risk. It's her decision to sit still with him, even when every cell in her body is screaming to move. It's in the small compromises, the spontaneous weekend that ends early because he needs rest. The quiet night in that turns wild because she pulls him onto the living room floor to dance. When they get it right, it's not just a balance of personalities, it's a blending of worlds. Theirs is a relationship forged through friction, but strengthened by respect. They don't change each other, they challenge each other. And in doing so, they become more than what they were alone. Because at the end of the day, long-term love isn't about finding someone exactly like you. It's about finding someone who makes you more yourself, even when that self needs to be stretched, softened, or sharpened. The Taurus man and Aries woman, when they choose each other again and again, don't just survive together. They build something rare, a love that moves and stays, that dares and protects. A love that doesn't just burn bright, but burns on purpose. Final thoughts: are Aries and Taurus compatible in love? Let's not romanticize the challenge. Aries and Taurus are fundamentally different. Not just in personality, but in pace, values, instincts, and the way they navigate love itself. Aries is ruled by Mars, the planet of war, action, and instinct. Taurus answers to Venus, the planet of love, beauty, and stability. These aren't just different energies, they are, in many ways, oppositional. One is driven by the need to move, the other by the need to maintain. Aries is the spark, Taurus is the hearth. Aries says, "Let's go now." Taurus replies, "Let's wait and be sure." Aries wants to conquer, Taurus wants to cultivate. One lives in fire, the other in earth. It would be foolish to ignore how much this contrast demands. And yet, that contrast is exactly why this relationship can be so profoundly transformational. Because sometimes, what we need most is not someone who mirrors us, but someone who balances us. Aries, in all their impulsive, passionate boldness, teaches Taurus that not every risk is a threat, that sometimes the greatest growth comes from stepping outside the circle of safety. Taurus shows Aries that not every delay is stagnation, that depth, intimacy, and emotional security can't be rushed, but must be earned with consistency and care. When Aries listens, truly listens, they begin to understand that the Taurus way of loving is not about restriction, but about intention. That the slowness isn't fear, it's reverence. And when Taurus dares to follow Aries into the unknown, they discover that freedom doesn't have to come at the cost of stability, it can be something shared. Something sacred, something alive. Will this match be easy? Absolutely not. In fact, it may be one of the more challenging pairings in the zodiac, precisely because it forces each person to leave their comfort zone. Aries must learn the value of patience. Taurus must make peace with unpredictability. Aries must soften the urge to dominate. Taurus must resist the need to control. These aren't surface-level shifts. They require emotional evolution, the willingness to look inward, to let go of pride, to compromise without feeling like you've lost. But here's the truth most astrology books won't tell you: ease doesn't equal depth. Harmony doesn't always mean growth. Some of the greatest love stories, the ones that endure, that shape who we become, are built not on perfect compatibility, but on conscious commitment. On two people saying, I see how different we are, and I still choose you. That's what Aries and Taurus have the power to become. Not a couple that slides into sync, but one that learns the rhythm together. Over time, with effort, with humility, they won't always meet in the middle, but when they do, it's electric. Because in that space, between fire and soil, is where life actually grows. Aries brings energy into the rooms Taurus thought they already understood. Taurus brings calm into the moments Aries thought needed to be conquered. Together, they don't just create a relationship. They build a shared ecosystem, where passion doesn't burn wild, and security doesn't grow stale. Where love is both an adventure and a home. They won't always speak the same emotional dialect, but if they become fluent in each other's silences, if Aries learns that patience can be a form of passion, and Taurus learns that chaos can still hold care, they will find themselves creating something rare. Something powerful, something that lasts not in spite of their differences, but because of them. So, is there compatibility between Aries and Taurus? Not in the traditional sense. Not in the we finish each other's sentences way. But in the we became better people because of this love way. Absolutely, this pairing doesn't promise ease. But it does promise depth, transformation, and the potential to build a partnership that is equal parts challenge and reward. And that's the secret no chart or horoscope can predict, how much each of you is willing to grow. Because at the end of the day, compatibility isn't cosmic fate, it's conscious choice. The stars may draw the blueprint, but you decide whether to build. So if you're an Aries or a Taurus, or someone who's fallen for one, ask yourself, are you ready to be stretched? To evolve beyond the familiar? To stop trying to change the other person and start learning from them? Because if the answer is yes, if you're both willing to meet in the messy, magical middle, then yes, this love can absolutely work. Not by accident, not because it's written, but because you write it together.